Page 160, which is Blackberry Pond. Here we go. They had been fast asleep for some time when they were startled awake by the thudding of hoofs in the road below and the whinny of horses suddenly reined in. There was an echoing rap of a musket against the door. Matthew must have been awake and waiting, for before the rapping ceased, they heard the bolt slide back. Instantly, Judith was out of bed with Kit scrambling after her, snatching heavy cloaks to pull over their night clothes. The girls flung open the chamber door. From the opposite room came Rachel, still fully dressed. The three women crowded together under narrow straits. To Kit's astonishment, the man who stepped through the door into the light of Matthew's candle was William. "It's safe, sir," he burst out before the door was shut. "The charter's safe, where he can never lay a hand on it." "Thank God!" exclaimed Matthew reverently. "You were at the meeting, William?" "Yes, sir, since 4 o'clock. Sir Edmund got a stomachful of talking that day. The speeches of welcome lasted near to 3 hours before he could get in a word of business. And the charter, it was there all the time in the middle of the table in plain sight. Sir Edmund made a long speech about how much better off we were all going to be. It got dark, and finally he asked for lights. Before long the room got hot and full of smoke, and when someone opened a window, the draught blew out the candles. It took quite a few minutes to get them lighted. Nobody moved. Far as I could see, everybody stayed right in their places, but when the candles were lit, the charter had disappeared. They looked high and low for it, all over the room, and never found a trace. Was the governor angered? You'd have admired him, sir. You couldn't help it. He sat there cool as an icicle. He knew the paper wasn't going to be found, and he wouldn't stoop to ask a question about it. As it was, he could afford to ignore it. "Aye," said Matthew grimly. "He had the power in his hands without it." "Yes." Governor Treat read a statement, and they all signed it. "The colony of Connecticut is annexed to Massachusetts. Governor Treat will be appointed colonel of militia. And Gresham Bulkley? They said he will be appointed a justice of the peace for his loyalty." Snorted Matthew. He thought the news over for a moment. "The charter," he insisted. "Do you know what had happened to it?" William hesitated. For the first time he acknowledged the presence of the three women by one brief embarrassed glance up the stairs. "No, sir," answered the woman. The room was dark. "Then how do you know it is safe?" "It is safe, sir," said William positively. "Then we can hold up our heads," said Matthew, taking a long breath. "Thank you for coming, my boy." When the door was shut behind Matthew turned to the woman on the stairs. "We can praise God for this night," he said. "Now get to bed, all of you. And remember, if there is any talk about this, you have heard nothing. Nothing at all. Do you understand?" "Can you sleep now, Matthew?" asked his wife anxiously. "Aye," agreed Matthew. "I can sleep now. There are hard times ahead for Connecticut, but some day, when the hard times have passed, as they must pass, we will bring our charter out of hiding and begin again, and we will show the world what it means to be free men." The two girls crept back into the cold chamber and climbed shivering into bed. As Kit lay wide awake in the blackness, some distant shouts, a snatch of rancorous, unrestrained singing such as she had never heard before in West Chesterfield, sent her mind back to the days of her childhood. She surprised Judith by a sudden giggle. "I know where the charter went," she whispered. "The spirits took it." "Where are you talking about? What are you talking about?" Judith was almost asleep. "I just remembered it is All Hallows Eve. This is the night the witches are supposed to ride abroad on broomsticks, and the spirits do all sorts of queer things." "Nonsense," said Judith. "We don't hold with saints' days here in New England. Besides, William knows perfectly well where the charter is. I could tell he does." Snubbed again, Kit fell silent and listened to that unaccustomed shouting in the distance. She felt curiously elated. She knew she had overheard an account of serious insubordination to the king, yet in her heart she was glad that her uncle had known this small victory. Now perhaps he would have some peace in the house. No, it was more than that. Tonight she had understood for the first time what her aunt had seen in that fierce man to make her cross an ocean to his side. There was a sort of magnificence about him, and even without the fine uniform that made Governor Andros so splendid, lying there in the dark, Kit had to admit it. She was proud of him. Chapter 16. "There will be no Thanksgiving this week," announced Matthew when he came out at noontime. the next day. It seems as we have no authority here in Connecticut to declare our own holiday. His Excellency, the new governor, will declare Thanksgiving when it pleases him. Oh dear, exclaimed Judith in disappointment. We had planned such a lovely day, and Mercy has pies baked already. We can be thankful among ourselves that we have an abundance to eat and the good health to enjoy it. But there won't be any games, and the train band won't drill. There is no occasion to celebrate, he reminded her. Better the young people to remember that idleness breeds mischief. A disgraceful thing happened last night. Never since we have lived in Wethersfield has there been such a disturbance on Hallows Eve. I thought I heard some shouting, said Rachel. It reminded me of home. In England, the boys used to light bonfires and march through the streets. Such things are best not mentioned, her husband silenced her. All Saints' Night is a Papist feast. But our own young people had no share in this. Thank goodness. 'Twas a rowdy band of rivermen from a trading ship. Did they do any damage? Little enough, since we have the constable who is quirk to his study. The 3 ringleaders are cooling their heels now in his shed, and on lecture day they will sit for all to see in the town stocks. What did they do, father? Inquired Judith coolly. Across the table her eyes met Kit's deliberately. They came roistering into the town just before midnight. I am sorry to tell you, Catherine, that your friend William Ashby seems to have been the only one singled out for their insulting prank. Kit dared not ask the questions, but her uncle went on. They illuminated his house, he told them gravely. You mean they burned it down? Gasped Rachel. No, they well might have. They put lanterns in the windows frames that are waiting for the new panes, lanterns made out of pumpkin heads, with candles inside, and unholy faces cut in the sides to show the light. Jack-o'-lanterns, exclaimed Judith. Kit choked suddenly on a giggle that rose unexpectedly from nowhere. Instantly she was horrified at herself, and in mortified confusion she kept her eyes on the wooden trencher before her. Her uncle shot a suspicious glance at the 2 girls. Whatever they are called, they are devil's inventions. 'Twas an outrageous piece of blasphemy. I trust they will be dealt with severely. Thursday lecture, the day of the public punishment, was 2 days away. Somehow Kit knew she would have to endure the waiting, though actually she knew already what she would see. I did no good to remind herself that there were dozens of trading ships on the river, and that the Dolphin might well be on to sea by now. At the end, page 166.